Kyle Collier, CEO, co-founder of Phaze. Phaze is a mobile application that allows you to use crypto and actually use this crypto and actually spend. And so I could actually take my Bitcoin and load it onto this app, and I could go to a Walmart, for example, and actually spend this. So Kyle has been around the space for quite some time now. He's developed a lot of really cool solutions. He's actually managing director and founder of the blockchain accelerator. So warm hand of applause for Kyle. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Collier, co-founder and CEO of Phaze. So we're partnered with over 1,000 of the world's biggest brands to reward you for spending crypto at all of their 1 million plus online and in-store locations. So that's my full-time role. A little bit of a background about myself. I'm a Waterloo engineer. Graduated from there in 2011, did protocol engineering for a few companies called Sandvine and Public Mobile. Then I was fortunate enough to launch my own companies. I had 2 small exits in the past. Then I went on to help lead an amazing team of growth marketers at Ritual. They recently raised $90 million. And what was our really unique thing that we did was we built growth playbooks. And those things were these learnings that we took and repeatedly kind of did these things over and over and over again to establish great, very quick growth in a variety of cities at a very rapid pace. So really bringing kind of blockchain mainstream, going and building products is something that I'm truly passionate about. And that's why I've been able to work with Anthony Diorio and Sunil Sharma, the director of Techstars, and Anthony, as you know, is one of the co-founders of Ethereum, to launch Founders Institute. And Founders Institute, we really focus on really bringing products to market. These are all early stage founders, and we're helping them get really from 0 to 1. And I think that is a very important thing, and something that blockchain and this ICO craze really skipped. And I think that may be why, or one of the many reasons why we're in this economy in crypto and blockchain that we are right now. We had a variety of first-time founders raise millions of dollars, and now they've launched these protocols, which is great. That is the TCP/IP of blockchain. If you think back, in the year 2000, if you could own TCP/IP or one of those network protocols, you probably wouldn't be sitting in this office right now. You'd probably have your own island somewhere warm, enjoying yourself, and you wouldn't be here freezing your butt off in Canada in the winter. So, this is what's inspiring a lot of these young, really go-getter style entrepreneurs, and they've been able to raise a great amount of money on their ICOs. But now they're wondering, well, what's next? We've built these protocols. We've been able to show some substantial traction. We've been able to hype up our token, and we've been able to rally a great community around the idea that we're going to be the next TCP/IP for money. And this is a really exciting idea, and it's a really exciting time to be in the space. So now a lot of these protocols are trying to think, well, how do we get people to build on our protocol? Because if you think about it, it's a little bit of an arms race. You have all of these protocols saying we're faster, we have a better consensus mechanism, we're more secure, we have higher transactions per second. And this is a really challenging arms race to be in, and that's effectively what they're all doing at this point. So the angle I'm looking at it from is, well, how do you build the startup? Like, I'm an old school startup guy. I've been involved with Techstars and Founders Institute. I'm an accelerator guy. I like building things. Hey, we're a bunch of guys in our basement. This is kind of how I built my first companies. And we built products. We didn't think about raising capital. We figured you need to go talk to an investor or even a lawyer. And it's like, hey, I got this great idea. They would just laugh you out of the room. And that was completely normal. And now you look at these first-time people that have never launched a company before, and they have millions of dollars, and they don't know what to do. They've been able to inspire people to get along with this idea of, we're going to be the next TCP/IP for the Internet of Money, build on our protocol, but that's proven to be a much larger challenge than anyone's really thought about. So I think what really will take getting to the next stage of blockchain and things like that is looking at the entrepreneurs who are building things first, and then looking at, well, what new opportunities is blockchain providing? What are the challenges that exist and the opportunities that exist with this new technology? And if you think back, when databases came out, If you went and pitched a VC saying, hey, I'm doing so-and-so, but with a database. If you think about that idea now, it's kind of ridiculous. And that's kind of how people are pitching a lot of blockchain companies, which is far from ideal, because that's really not what blockchain really does. That's not really what it unlocks. What it really can allow you to do is not just achieve what's been done before in a decentralized manner without a centralized authority, but what it really can empower people to do is really take things that have had very low transparency, have had governance problems, have had fraud, and make them really, really much more secure and optimized in a variety of ways. But unfortunately, we haven't, regulation and a lot of those things have not caught up to those ideas yet. So it's almost like we have to start at almost a centralized path. It's like, hey, there's this new technology out there. Well, what are the problems and opportunities that exist in it? And how can we, as companies, kind of look at those and say, okay, we need to build kind of what's next. We need to build what's next to support this new technology, to support possibly this currency, and then, and only then, can kind of more of these greater things happen with decentralized applications. And this is just my stance. So, my perspective is very different, and it's very possibly unique. But this is what I really feel is going to be kind of the next, what is next and what is required for this industry to go forward. Now, just as a show of hands, I've seen that a lot of people here already own cryptocurrency, and they're probably crying themselves to sleep at night the last little while. So why do you think things like that happen? Why do you think the big sell-off happened with cryptocurrency in 2017? We got an idea?
Oh, sorry, it was about the dip.
Okay, sure.
I think Jihan Bitmain directed his hash power towards Bitcoin Cash, which he called a week beforehand and said it would go below 5,000.
Okay. So does anyone think that I love the technology kind of aspect of that, and it's very great possibility. So if you look at what happened in 2017, all of these entrepreneurs raised millions of dollars in these ICOs. And then what did they do? Well, I have a bunch of money in crypto. I need to build a company. I can't use that crypto to start a company. I can't pay people. I can't buy things. I can't do a lot of things with that crypto. So I have to sell it to fiat. Well, what happens when you sell hundreds of millions of dollars in crypto to fiat? Well, the market's going to go down. So people thought this was very surprising. But if you look back in the history of crypto and blockchain, we've had bigger highs and lower lows every year so far. And future transactions are no anticipation of the present and or future. But it goes to show that this is something that's here to stay. And you look at some of the great companies that are really doing interesting things in this space. There's a lot of great protocols here in Toronto. There's a lot of great companies here in Toronto. Northern Block obviously being one of them. But look at some other companies like Decentral, Aeon, Buns. These are all companies taking real world, almost like centralized approaches, but using this decentralized technology. And it's almost, as a founder and an entrepreneur, it's tough to say that you want to take a centralized approach to using a decentralized technology. But really, until there's real nice regulation around the best practices to use decentralized technology, entrepreneurs we're terrified of it. We see the opportunity, but we're also terrified of it as well, because we don't know, what we can do and what we really can't do until it's too late and you get a smack on the wrist. And I think that's okay. But we're really only going to see kind of what I feel to be an evolution of, hey, here's a centralized application evolving to a decentralized application. So if you look at wallets, there was a lot of talk about wallets earlier. And wallets, are the gateway to crypto. You hold your assets, financial, this is how people look at blockchain and crypto in a variety of ways. But then if you look at things like Jax, where you have your private keys, that's more of a decentralized model. That's almost like an evolution of a normal wallet. And while there's a big engineering team at Jax working on that, that's arguably as decentralized as I think we're going to get, until you get into things like DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. And I think that opportunity is really interesting. But does anyone in here have any idea how you would even begin to start building a decentralized autonomous organization? That's even hard to say. So these are things I think we can definitely work towards. But I think as a starting block, we have to look at, what's needed in this industry. And then what can we really work towards? And if you look at, Ethereum and Bitcoin being considered not securities, I think that is an interesting plagiarism where, an authoritative figure definitively said that they're not securities. And I think that's because, they're arguably decentralized in nature. So I think DAOs and things like that are definitely going to be the future. But I think there's going to be a lot of evolutionary steps that us entrepreneurs, lawyers, venture capitalists, people in enterprise are going to have to take for the world to get there. But I think that is a really interesting opportunity around kind of blockchain and where things are going. So other things that I've seen is the rise of investment vehicles. So a lot of these protocols, they've raised a variety of capital, a fair amount, and they've started reinvesting in early stage startups building on their protocols, which I think is a great idea. Obviously I have an accelerator kind of perspective on things, and I like the idea of small investments in a variety of things. And I think this is a great way to spawn the ecosystem. But then kind of enterprise, I think, is a really interesting and tough nut to crack. And keep in mind, I don't have experience in enterprise. I'm a startup guy from literally day one. But I think it'll be very difficult for any blockchain protocol to really penetrate enterprise because of the nature of enterprise. There's a lot of decision makers. It's very difficult. You're kind of trying to, a lot of people are like, hey, let's slide blockchain in there because it's buzzy, it can save us some money, there's transparency. And a lot of these big enterprise style companies, they like that centralized power. And who's ever in centralized kind of decision making within these companies may resist these types of transitions and changes. And so I think taking an evolutionary approach where maybe it's not completely decentralized, or maybe it's not a blockchain or completely new technology, solving problems in enterprise with these new types of technologies, I think is one step that has to work in the right direction. But I still think having a lot of centralized authority around those changes makes a lot of sense in the early stages. So with that, what do you guys think is going to be the next thing that triggers the next kind of evolutionary change in blockchain? I'm really curious because we have a room full of experts. You guys are up at 7 a.m. to learn about blockchain, so you guys must be really passionate about this day. So what do you guys think is actually going to change the way that blockchain integrates with the rest of the world? Yes. Yes.
And we've muddled the two because there's just been so much money.
Excellent point.
What you're doing at Founders Institute is great because you've got small companies trying to solve real world problems. And if you look at successful startups, they come from solving a problem and coming up with a solution. Right now we've got blockchain looking for problems to solve. That's not the way it works. And you end up throwing money at stuff, throwing shit against the wall and seeing what sticks, and usually it doesn't stick. Whereas if you come at it from a problem-solving perspective and say, what's the real pain here? What's the real pain that we have to solve? Then I think you're going to start to see some really interesting use cases. So that's kind of my perspective. And just the other comment I would make is on the incumbent enterprises versus I call them the freaks and geeks who created all this, and the incumbents. The freaks and geeks are playing offense. They're trying to tear down the system. Incumbents should be playing defense, trying to figure out how I don't become the next Sears in a world of Amazon. How's Amazon going to get disrupted in 20 years from now by some blockchain or other solution that we can't even envision today? Big enterprise has to look at this technology as a defensive play to stay abreast of the threats that they see from these solution solvers who are coming and bubbling up from the startup world.
I think that's great. That's great perspective. I'd love to hear some more.
Well, hi, my name is Victor Gugos. I run a order management system, trade crypto across all major exchanges. So I have data points and insights that are rather unique. I would dare to say that I have better data feeds than Bloomberg. So it's very interesting because I see right now, and especially the market is very reflective of what you explained earlier. You know, the selling pressure from ICOs, the Tether fiasco, the fork, and which brings the biggest problem here. I don't think that we at this stage, as humans, are ready to utter decentralized governance and incentive in the same sentence. So you're talking about private chain, you're talking about public chain. There's really no decentralized entity out there. There's a foundation, there's still a bunch of people who can yank the carpet from under your feet by changing the protocol overnight. If everybody in the room had $1 billion now, we could start the next Bitcoin. We could fork it tomorrow, grab the code, fork it, and grab the market. So this is the problem really is at the infrastructure level. Until we have some emerging protocols, maybe not just one, just like you saw in telecom, in internet, in even cellular communications, until you have an emerging protocol that most parties can align with, you can't solve this fundamental behavioral economics problem. Decentralized governance and incentive. What is the incentive to run any of these phenomenal, decentralized networks?
Great feedback. Oh, one more maybe? All right. There.
Thanks a lot. I'm actually going to take a slightly contrarian view to my friend from Faskins over here, which kind of surprises me a little bit because, I remember I worked for IBM back in the 90s, and you were talking about TCP/IP earlier, and I remember when we shipped to the second or third version of OS/2 Warp, we had this big bright sticker on the front of the box that says featuring TCP/IP. And, it kind of feels the same way today. And I think, to answer your question of when it really turns the next corner, it's when it becomes invisible, right? We never talk about featuring TCP/IP anymore. It's just kind of there, and it does what it does, and it's kind of boring. And we've all moved up to start building value at a much higher level in the stack. And I think what happens is that if you look generationally, if generation 1 of blockchain, typified by Bitcoin, was all about a distributed ledger and double spending and those kinds of things, and generation 2 was Ethereum and Hyperledger and was all about automation and smart contracts, and generation 3 was, Cardano and EOS and Aeon, and it was all about scaling and sharding and those sorts of things and trying to actually make it work. I think generation 4 blockchains, and I've actually seen a few projects start to emerge that kind of fit my criteria, is when we start to get to an abstraction where this just moves into the elastic cloud layer and it provides these underlying services, and people can concentrate on building business networks. And I actually, I come from a big enterprise space, and so I'm very sympathetic to the view that says, you've got a problem, go and design a solution to find the problem. But when I think back about the experience we had in the 90s with the internet, we had exactly the opposite sort of approach, right? We had no idea what the problem was. It was a new infrastructure, and it was kind of, let's build it up and see what happens. And I have a sense that this may in fact go the same way, that we are on the cusp in the next 2 to 3, maybe 4 years, where a number of platforms will emerge that will abstract the complexity enough where people can just get to work and start building business networks in any number of different configurations that we haven't even dreamed of, and that will be very organic. And it won't be about saying, hey, there's a problem, how do I use this technology to go and solve it? It's going to be about, here's a platform, go and invent some stuff. And that's how I see it evolving.
No, this has all been really great and really helpful. I love hearing kind of sentiment from what people actually think and where people actually believe this industry is going. I think, the next evolution will be, the internet of money, where you're incentivized to share your private data. Your centralized authorities like Facebook and Snapchat won't own it. You're going to have little switches within apps saying, hey, I'll share my birthday. Okay, you're going to give me $5 for it. I think that opportunity, as simple as it is, and that's one of the very simplistic things, and I think that will be one of the first ways that there will be a somewhat slight move away from these really, really centralized authorities that really kind of own your data. So I think that's something that blockchain has really brought to the surface of you own this versus someone else owns this. And I think that simple connotation that there's value in that is going to be one of the first plagiarism shifts from Web 2.0 to Web 3.0 around the Internet of Money. So that's everything for me today. I'm going to be around afterwards again, and thank you very much, Fasken, and the amazing panel, and everyone at Northern Block for having me here today.
Thanks, Kyle. That was awesome. Thanks for coming and doing this. Fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So that's it for content. Thank you, everyone, for getting up bright and early and coming here. Hope you enjoyed the content we did today. Looking forward to do this type of thing again. So thanks a lot to Fasken for hosting us. Thanks for the wonderful panelists that came and shared their insights and knowledge. And Kyle, thank you as well for coming and giving that great talk. So thank you, everyone, for coming. Look forward to chatting with a lot of you folks afterwards. Thank you.